Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. So, how's it going? How's everyone's day? Leave a comment, let me know. In today's video, I wanted to kind of go over some things I have learned working at Sephora. I started working at Sephora in October of 2016, and I have come a long way. I'm going to kind of talk to you about that, and I just want to, if anyone's out there that's interested in getting a job at Sephora, what it's really like, some of the different things you learn at Sephora, that is what I am going to talk about today. It'll be 10 things that I have learned, like makeup tricks and just overall things I've learned at Sephora. So yeah, if you want to see that video, then please keep watching. So I wrote my list down because I didn't want to forget it, because you guys know I'm like a spasm. I'll start like thinking of different things and then I'll spout out to one thing, go to another, and I want to stay like on track. So I wrote everything down. So the first thing that I learned at Sephora was that you do not know everything. And I know that sounds like, well, duh, you don't know everything. What I mean by that is, you think going into something like you've done years of like practicing on yourself, practicing on clients, you're like, oh, I got this down, like I know what I'm doing, you know. You just have this sense of like, you know a lot of things. And when you go into Sephora, they do so much training and you're like, how did I think I knew like even a quarter of what there is to learn? So yeah, that's the first thing I learned, is that you just don't know everything. The second thing I learned working at Sephora is that YouTube is not always right. And that kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said. There's so many videos out there on YouTube teaching people how to do makeup. And don't get me wrong, that's where I learned that's where I learned majority of the material and stuff that I know in my head. But it's not always right. Like I remember doing training to be in color, and I was doing all these techniques that I saw on YouTube, and they're like, when you do people's makeup, you don't actually do all that. Like, give you an example, like doing the whole like drawing the big ass triangles on everybody, and baking for everybody, and doing all these different like YouTube beauty gurus, like all the tips and tricks that they teach you, not necessarily going to work for every client or is realistic, basically. So that is another thing I learned at Sephora. Right, so the third thing I learned working at Sephora is eye shape. So just because you do an eyeshadow technique one way on yourself, there's so many different eye shapes that you're not going to do that on everybody. And some makeup artists that haven't worked at Sephora, they probably know that. Me going into it, I didn't know that, because I, watched YouTube videos and I just did it like a certain way, and I'm like, oh, it looks good on me. Outer crease, you place it right here in the same spot on everybody, and it's not like that at all. That was the one thing when I moved to color, having to really learn, was that everyone's eye shape different, which I know everyone's eye shape's different, but I didn't comprehend that there's different placements for different eye shapes. I was just putting them in the same like little creased area. I wasn't bringing it high enough. I wasn't bringing it low enough for people's different eye shape. So that's one thing that you're going to learn at Sephora if you decide to work there, is that, especially if you're in color, is that definitely pay attention to the eye shape of the client, and once you do that, you will get a lot further, I promise you. The fourth thing that I learned working at Sephora is skincare is majorly important. And you're probably thinking like, how did you not know skincare was important anyways? So let me just kind of give you a breakdown of what my skincare regimen looked like before I started working at Sephora. I used to come home after school, after I had my makeup on, get a Neutrogena, wipe my makeup off, and that was it. Never washed my face. I mean, every once in a while in the shower, like maybe if I had like soap or something, like, or like the cheap stuff, like the Neutrogena, like the ones with the beads in it, the clean, what is it, Clean and Clear? Yeah, every once in a while I would do that. But yeah, that's what my skincare, and for a lot of people that's probably what it still is. And I started working at Sephora and skincare was like the #1 thing that they talk about. I mean, they talk about color, fragrance, all that, but they really want you to work on skincare, because if you think about it, skincare is the #1 thing before you put your makeup on. If your skin is not in its best place, then your makeup's not going to be in its best place. So skincare is really where you want to start. And I didn't know that going into it. I was like, well, let me just buy the fullest of cover foundation, and then let me just cover everything up, not actually concentrate on what I'm actually trying to cover and like fix that problem. Ever since I started working there, my skin tremendously changed. I noticed my pores are a lot smaller, which I don't know why. Like, I always think I can see my pores, but then clients are always like, you just have such nice skin, like there's no pores. And I'm like, girlfriend, there is pores. But I try to reiterate that. They're like, well, what foundation are you using? What primer are you using? And I'm like, it's not a primer, it's my skincare. Because I can use all the foundations in the world, but if I'm not actually shrinking my pores underneath, it's never gonna actually like take care of the pores. Skincare is so important. I definitely recommend looking into what would be best for your skin, and I'm gonna go over another couple little tidbits about skin in this little list. Moving on. The 5th thing that I learned working at Sephora is that there's another skincare thing. It's basically a lot of clients come in and they, you know, say they have oily skin. They're trying to look for primers and foundations that are gonna like matte their skin down, so none of the oil. So they just want to get like a mattifying primer, a mattifying foundation, you know, all these matte things, and they're not putting any kind of hydration into their skin, so their skin's actually dehydrated. So if you didn't know this, like I didn't know this either. I used to be super oily and my skin's actually balanced out since I've taken care of my skin. But when I was super oily, I was like, oh, I gotta have a matte primer, matte foundation, matte. Like I can't have any kind of like moisturizer because it's moisture and it's making me more oily. No, moisturizer actually balances out your skin and your hydration levels, so you're not overproducing the oils. So when you aren't putting any kind of moisture into your skin's like, crap, I have to like pump moisture, I have to pump like oils out, I have to pump all this out because I'm not getting it. So basically, if you have oily skin, try this. Get like a gel like moisturizer, nothing too thick or heavy because you don't want to like overdo it, but get like a gel like texture. Like the Tatcha water cream is really good. Believe Aqua Bomb is really good. Try that moisturizer out, and I can guarantee you'll start seeing less of those oils coming through because your skin's not going to overproduce as much. So yeah, that's another thing I learned at Sephora. Fun fact, your girl's not oily no more. 6th thing that I learned working at Sephora is that you can actually use beauty oils to pre-oxidate your foundation when you're doing color matches. So do you ever notice how you get a color match, or you do your color match and it looks good in the store, you go home, it oxidizes, and you're like, why did they match me to something so orange? Or why did I match myself and it looks orange, it looks fine in the store? So this is a really cool trick that I didn't learn until I got to Sephora. Was that if you take a beauty oil in the palm of your hand, and then you take any foundation that you're trying to match to, mix it, it's going to actually oxidize it for you, so then you can match it based on what it's going to oxidize when you go home, so you can see what the true color of it is, and it's going to make your life a lot easier. So if you're worried like, does this oxidize, go grab a beauty oil. They have testers there. Just put a drop there, mix it with the foundation, and you're going to see what the true color is. That way you're not being played by that foundation. But the 7th thing that I learned working at Sephora is another like tip, trick type of thing. So if you're ever doing like a client's makeup, even your own, but mostly I feel like this is really helpful when you're doing clients' makeup if you're freelancing, is if you say you make a mistake doing their eyeshadow look, say you brought, you know, the smoky eye a little too high, or you like smudge something. A cool trick that I learned is that you can take eyeshadow primer actually, and you can wipe over it and it'll actually remove the color of the shadow, but it'll still prime the eye because you know you're using eye primer. So when you go back in, it's not going to leave like a gap. Like sometimes if you try to just wipe it off and then there's a gap there and you try to like blend shadow over it, you remove the primer so it's not going to stick to that area, and then it's going to be a whole big mess. So if you're like, I don't want to start all over, but I did bring it a little too high or something, you can wipe over it with eyeshadow primer and you're good to go. That's another trick. Number 8th thing that I have learned from working at Sephora is how to stand your ground with clients. So when I first started in color, and I'm still working on it, I'm not gonna lie, like it's not like 100% like I got it down. I'm always somebody that wants to please everybody, and when you work in a like a retail environment, especially with makeup artistry, you have to be in a time frame of like 45 minutes to an hour, especially around prom season, homecoming season. Like you don't have time to necessarily let that client run over you. And I have fallen, what is the word? I have fallen into that hole where like I want to please them. So I'm just like doing every little thing that they want, and I'm not getting done with my appointments, and I'm not letting them just trust me. I'm like just letting them run the appointment. So really working there has taught me how to, especially I can take this outside when I do freelancing, so I can use this to my advantage, where if I'm doing multiple clients for like bridal parties or something, I can keep myself on track. And that's helped me be successful in like my future career and stuff like that with makeup artistry, is just making sure not to let that client run you down, to stick to your guns. You are the artist. You make the decisions. Yes, listen to your client, make sure you give them what they want, but at the same time, don't let them say, I want this from this, and I want this from this, and I want you to bring me this from palette. And then you'll be halfway through your makeover and they'll be like, but I want to use that instead, and you brought that, but I want that. Like, you have to realize you are the makeup artist. You're the professional, and that's it. And you just have to say, this is what we're gonna do. We have 45 minutes to do it, and it's gonna look amazing. So the 9th thing that I have learned from working at Sephora is basically being self-confident in my artistry. So this kind of goes back with what I just said about like clients wanting to like run over you with like what they think is gonna look good, what they want, and not taking consideration that you are the artist and that this is your job. This is why Sephora hired you. This is why Sephora keeps you, because you were the artist. And for the longest time, like I was cash strapped for a year before I progressed into color, and I just remember some of the things like my leadership told me was that you have to be more confident if you ever want to be in color. You have to be confident recommending products. You have to be confident applying the products without letting somebody tell you that it doesn't look good or that something's wrong. Like, you have to be confident in knowing that you are good at what you do. And that was a big problem for me for the longest time, because I would always like double check, like, do you think this is gonna work for this client? Do you think this looks good? And I would always want to double check with my cast members, and I would never be like, no, you know what, this is gonna work for you, this is why, and you're gonna love it, and if you don't love it, you can bring it back. You know, I struggle with that, because I'm always somebody that wants to like double check, because I want the best for everybody, that I don't sit there and stop and say, hey, you know what you're talking about. Like, you've got the education, you've been through the training, you know what is recommended for this skin type, what's recommended for this skin type. Like, don't second guess yourself. So that's another thing Sephora has helped me with, is just building my self-confidence with my artistry and with recommending products and just overall like myself, you know. So the 10th and final thing that Sephora has taught me is basically overall making me a better artist. So Sephora is very big on their education, their trainings. We always have brands coming in training, and they want to make sure we get those trainings. They're always open to help further your career as an artist, as a leader. They always are making sure, like, what can I do for you? And that's my biggest thing. That's why I left this as the last one. It's my favorite thing about working at Sephora, past all of like the retail side of it and like making sure I'm a good artist and stuff, is the fact that they care about your future. They know that this is like what you're passionate about. They see that you are grinding. They see that you're a good artist, and they work with you to make you better. And I can never ask for something more in a job, because, you know, all the other jobs I've ever had have just been like, oh, you show up to work, you clock in, do what is required of you, and then you go home. Never like fulfilling anything out of that job. From day one, I've always wanted to be a better artist. To this day, I still want to be a better artist. So that's really what I'm working for, and I know Sephora has my back with that. I know that that's what they're interested in. You know, they're always giving me feedback when I need it. You know, I'm all for like constructive criticism, because if not, I'll never get better at certain things. So yeah, Sephora is awesome with that. And yes, I think that is it. I feel like I've covered a lot of things. Now there is, of course, a whole training we go through when you get into color and stuff like that. So there's more tips and tricks. I just wanted to give you kind of a rundown of some cool little tidbits and then like overall learning lessons that I've learned from Sephora. So in case any of you out there are thinking about applying at Sephora and you want to know like, is it worth it? Like, how is it? I definitely think it's worth it, especially if this is like your career path you're seeing. I definitely think it's worth it. If you guys have any questions for me, I'd love to hear them, because yeah, I just love hearing feedback, and I want to make sure you are ready, you are prepared for this. And I just want to, I don't know if I ever like told you my story. I kind of had little tidbits in here and there, but basically when I started as a cashier because there wasn't any color positions open. And so I was there for a year until I finally, in November of last year, they were like, you know what, let's put you in color, let's get you started, let's do your training. And then in February, I got certified, CM certified, so that just basically means I'm a certified Sephora makeup artist. And yeah, so that's kind of like my story. I'm working to better myself, and I just can't wait till you guys see the journey that I go on. And I really wish you guys would hit that subscribe button. I know I joke about it all the time about this side or this side, but I really want to have you guys here with me and grow on this journey. I feel like we can help each other out. At the end of the video, guys, I love you so much. Make sure you hit the like button, because I want to know if you like these types of videos, my Sephora videos. If you want to see more, make sure you like it. And yeah, just make sure you hit that subscribe button, and hope you have a great day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!